up the main characters' butts. Hello everyone and welcome to an Anime Club After Dark special. I'm your host Alex, and joining me tonight I just have our Chivalry of Shota, Shotaro.
I hate all men.
Okay. And tonight, as I said, we're doing a special episode because this is the very first episode of an episode-by-episode review both myself and Sho will be doing for the spring 2019 anime called Sarazanmai. So without any further ado, we're just going to get right into it. So if you watched or listened to our spring 2019 season preview that we did a few months ago, you'll know that both myself and Sho poo-pooed the very idea of the show outright. I think we're sort of eating our words now.
Well, the synopsis was so out there, and usually animes with really weird synopses tend to have very low production and tend to be really poorly put together and just a hot mess. And yeah. I mean, like, who would green light this with this amount of production and talent that we see it has now with a synopsis like that? Like, who goes into a production meeting and be like, we're gonna get 3 high school boys, we're gonna probe their anuses, we're gonna get some Kappa bodysuits, and this is going to be the best animation of the season. And that, like, who would do that? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And that was the whole thing. When we originally did our season preview, we basically just judged this on the synopsis because I believe at the time we recorded the season preview, there wasn't a PV that had been released yet.
No, so I don't think
that's
so.
All we had. We had the one piece of key art that had been released, and then which had like the character designs and stuff on it, and then we had the synopsis, and the synopsis really was out there and crazy, and I highly encourage you to go read it on Mal because that's the synopsis we read from. I think it has since changed though. I think they've added a couple of paragraphs to it to make it not so mysterious, but anyway, so Sarazanmai, first off, this is an anime original being done by Studio Mappa, who is responsible for shows like Zombieland Saga and Yuri on Ice, and the currently airing, at least as of the time of this recording, Dororo, which is another Mappa show you should definitely check out, and we probably will be doing a spoiler cast on it at some point on the podcast. But it is being directed by Kunihiko Ikuhara, probably most famous for anime like Mawaro Penguindrum. I always fuck up that because I always want to call it Penguindium for some reason.
Penguindrum. Just that you really just need to put a space between the penguin and the drum, and then maybe you can pronounce it.
Maybe. And Yorikuma Arashi, among other things. And it is also being sort of co-directed by Nobuyuki Takeuchi, who is probably most famous for being the animation director of Bakemonogatari. And that is kind of important because once you start watching this episode, and I think you'll agree with me, this anime has a lot of Monogatari-esque aesthetics, especially from Bakemonogatari.
Yep. I love how the very first shot of the show is a pedestrian crosswalk signal changing the light from stop to walk. In the first 15 seconds, I saw that crosswalk signal and I was like, am I watching Monogatari or am I watching Sarazanmai? I'm not sure.
Which is a great link because there's a lot of crosswalk symbology in Bakemonogatari, especially its first few episodes.
What is the deeper meaning of this?
I'm assuming, well, in Bakemonogatari, the symbology is that it's the main character of Koyomi moving from one part of his life to another.
Maybe it's a middle finger to isekai stories and
maybe
the trope of Truck-kun not following the crosswalk signal and knocking people down. Monogatari be like, great. You trash isekai, this is how you do a proper anime. I think that's what it means. I
think that would be great if the Monogatari series had not been written prior to the isekai explosion.
Well, the isekai novels were out, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there were a few, but not like there are today. But it's a great theory. Something else that is very Monogatari-esque for this is the faceless background characters and pedestrians in the show are all like these faceless, white, featureless stick figure kind of characters.
It's like the symbol of a person you use on a street sign.
Yeah, pretty much. And they have almost no animation. It's like almost like you have like a cardboard cutout that's just being pushed across the screen.
Like a pop-up picture book.
Yeah, like a pop-up picture book almost. Yeah. So in the Monogatari series, what they did was they did have some just faceless, featureless background characters in some scenes, but for the most part, what Monogatari did was it had giant cityscapes with no people in it, which kind of made it eerie. And in the same way, you can kind of see that with these featureless pedestrians. It's kind of eerie, and they're in this big city, and the main characters are all pretty detailed, and you have all these other faceless people that are literally faceless people walking around. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, broadly speaking, I wrote down that these directors did Monogatari, Penguin Drum, and Yurikuma Arashi because all three of those franchises are like really surreal, and they don't really try to tell a straightforward story. They do a lot of creative flourishes to their storytelling, and you can see that a lot in Sarazanmai. Like, maybe the pedestrian is not the pedestrian what Sarazanmai does with pedestrians is not exactly the same as Monogatari, but you get the same feel of it being very strange and surreal and not straightforward. So
not only do you get the same visual aesthetics, you also get the same kind of storytelling aesthetics.
Oh yeah, actually a lot, because like in Bake Monogatari, the show started with like 100 flashbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in Sarazanmai, it started with like he was like looking into something. He was looking into a floating symbol for A, the letter A, in Japanese. Whatever.
Yeah, the symbol.
You're right. You're right. It's pronounced ah. You weeb.
It was a hiragana
Anyways,
for ah.
he was looking at the ah symbol and having like some flashes. I don't know, flash forwards, whatever, flashes of things. So
flashes of memories, almost, basically.
Actually, yeah, I think it was flashes of memories. But I feel like one of those was not from the past. Whatever. Let's say
maybe he's flashes. Clairvoyant.
Sure. Well, it was a dream, so it could have been. He did wake up from the initial scene, but yeah, there's like a direct relation to how Monogatari started and how Sarazanmai started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both also start with a monologue from the main character.
True.
Because the main character of Sarazanmai, whose name is
Kazuki.
Escapes me. Kazuki, thank you. Name escaped me momentarily. He starts out with a monologue about his 3 rules for life. The first is that he has to carry his box around wherever he goes.
Honey. Okay. Okay, that was like the first actual line of the story, like after the OP. But like when he said the first rule of my life is I have to carry a box around wherever I go, I had to pause because that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's the most random sentence you could ever say. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, how can you carry a box around? I'm just like, what?
I mean, the first thing I thought when I read that, number one, I had to do like a double take as well. But number two, I thought, so is this box like a security blanket for you? Are you like Linus from Peanuts?
Oh my god.
So in his second is he has to check idol Azuma Sada's lucky selfie fortunes.
Oh wait, I just wanted to like, so the thing, like director Ikuhara, who worked on Penguin Drum and Yurikuma Arashi, the thing is that Penguin Drum and Yurikuma Arashi do a lot of this thing where they have these random elements that really don't make any sense, like carrying around the box is a rule of your life. Except they don't really explain it. And and they keep piling on random elements to the point that you don't really understand what's going on at all. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, great. I'm not going to understand anything.
And it's also to the point where you almost feel like it's foreshadowing something to come.
The box?
Like this, well, no, like these things that are pilot. Well, the box, yes, but also the lucky selfie fortunes, and then the third was that he has to share his lucky selfies with a certain person every day. It almost feels like this is leading to something down the road.
Really? Okay. I couldn't process all that information and make because that was too much information for me. My brain was overloaded. I couldn't think that it was foreshadowing, but clearly we know now it was. But I didn't think that at first. The second point where he has to follow the fortunes, I'm like, okay, that's normal. Like, people do that. The third thing where he has to share his selfies with a certain person every day, I was like, girl, are you in like an exploitative relationship where you as a high schooler has to send selfies of yourself every day to some random stranger? I'm like,
middle schooler.
Oh, sorry. Whatever, it's all the same. There's no middle school in like, I didn't go to middle school. Middle school wasn't part of high school. Whatever. Anyway, that's the first thing I thought when I saw that he's sending selfies. I'm like, girl, check yourself.
Yeah. I mean, my original thought when I heard that too was like, okay, so do you have I'm assuming this is for a significant other.
Oh, really? I thought
that was my assumption.
I don't know. Honey, you give a teen a cell phone, you know what they're going to do with that.
Dick pics.
Yeah.
So that's how we're introduced to who I'm assuming is going to end up being the main character of this story, Kazuki. The second person that you're introduced to is a character named Toi, who is...
Honey, he's a boy and he's a toy.
That is how his name is spelled. So the way that you're introduced to him is you're introduced to him breaking into a car while being watched by the same person, Azuma Sara, taking a selfie of herself while he's breaking into the car.
That was hilarious.
So yeah, that's a dramatic jump cut from one thing to another, because it almost seems like when you're following Kazuki while he's going through this monologue, it's like he's just sharing his everyday routine, and then you're automatically jumping to this person trying to break into a car for no established reason, by the way.
And I also want to mention that he tried to break into the car with a ruler. That is so random.
Okay, so I have some insight into that.
Okay.
There is a tool that you can actually use. You can buy it at just about any kind of auto parts store or like any kind of store here in the U.S. It's literally used to break into cars, but it's perfectly legal to sell it. It's for people to buy when they accidentally lock themselves out of their car.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks surprisingly like a ruler with a hook on the bottom of it.
No, I know that exists, and I know that it looks like a ruler, but it's still so random to use a ruler. Like, that's so quirky.
Yeah. I have seen at least one person in my life actually use a metal ruler to break into a car, though.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's very difficult and it requires a lot of nuanced hand motions, but it can be done.
Among other things.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a dramatic jump cut. Would you agree?
Well, honey, nothing about what just happened makes any sense. So this doesn't. The dramatic jump cut. I mean, it doesn't break the flow because there was no flow to begin with. But that's just another aspect that's really similar to Monogatari, because I don't know how to pronounce his name. How do you pronounce his name?
I say Toi.
Kuji. Kuji used a ruler for not its intended purpose, just like in Monogatari, Crab Girl used the stapler in the first episode, not for its purpose. So that's just another little connection between the two I thought was interesting. I also found that so hilarious that first of all, the idol on TV is in the streets, which makes no sense. Second of all, she takes a selfie of someone breaking into a car. Like, both of those things make no sense because, like, that would never happen in real life. So,
Yeah.
just, like, there's so many things that have been introduced in these, like, first 2 minutes that would never happen in real life that, like, there's just, my brain is just fried.
It's definitely testing your suspension of disbelief for sure.
It's testing my patience, girl.
So getting into this a little further, one thing that the first episode of Sarazanmai and hopefully the rest of them do is kind of dig into the whole myth of the Kappa, because that ends up being the kind of crux of the story.
I didn't know about the Kappa myth at all before I started this. And then immediately after the first episode, I scrolled down on Crunchyroll and someone wrote in the comments, hey, you know, a lot of this is related to the Kappa myth. And then I'm like, oh, you know, some of this actually makes sense now.
Yeah, I mean, especially once they meet Kepi, who is, I'm assuming, is supposed to be king of the Kappas. But even the title, Sarazanmai, so I went and did a little bit of research on this. So Sarazanmai, Sara is the word for plate or dish in Japanese. I learned that from Food Wars, by the way.
And that is relevant to the Kappa myth because
yes,
the crown on top of a Kappa's head is called a plate or dish.
Yeah, it's called a sara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's also takes the suffix zanmai, which refers to indulgence, which we learn after they meet Kepi. We learn about the whole thing with the how do you say it? Shirikodama. So like the Shirikodama, which for all intents and purposes seems to be very much related to the Christian concept of a soul.
Are you kidding me, right?
I mean, it seems that way. Maybe it's not. Maybe further on I'll find out that it's not.
Like in the actual Kappa myth or in the show or both?
In the Kappa myth.
Really?
It seems like the...
Because I can see in the show, but I didn't know. I thought in the myth they just take it out. It doesn't have any effect on you.
I'd have to dig into the Kappa myth more if it actually has effect on people once it's removed. I don't know.
I just assumed that. I don't know for sure.
But in the show also, it seems to be sort of analogous to a soul. At least the Christian concept of a soul.
I think,
except in Christian theology, the soul is supposed to be close to the heart, not inside your ass.
Oh my god, my soul is inside my ass, honey. I know where you keep your soul. You could definitely make that comparison. Though I think what the show is going more towards is that the Shirikodama represents your desire.
Yeah.
Not your life force, I guess. Whatever. Although it is similar. I will give you that.
Which, I mean, if you think about the word indulgence, I mean, people indulge in their desires all the time.
True.
But... I feel like we should go. We need to talk about the transformation sequence, but there's something else we need to talk about first. Oh, by the way, the actual I found this out too by doing a little bit of research. The shrine in the show where the two main characters break the Kappa statue is an actual statue in Tokyo, in a section of Tokyo called Kitchen Town.
And actually, Asakusa has a allegedly enshrined mummified limb of a Kappa in the shrine there.
Yeah, allegedly.
That's one of the reasons why they use Asakusa as the setting for this show, because it has a lot of relation to the Kappa myth.
Yes. So I'm kind of surprised at how deep into that myth the show goes. It also seems to take some of the myth rather literally.
I don't think we mentioned this, but the stealing of the Shirikodama is actually part of the myth.
Yes.
So
yes,
like
it is,
that's not something the story made up. that is actually part of the myth. Which, because when we read the synopsis, that was a big part that was the most random thing.
Yeah.
And learning that that was an actual thing that is an established mythology, I was like, what the actual... Okay, this is like becoming less crazy knowing that Ashiri Kodama is an actual part of mythology, but
yeah.
I mean, the concept itself is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned that this kind of imagery might be homophobic. So I'm curious as to what you mean by that.
Well,
or I should say you mentioned before we started.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, people listening won't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mentioned it before. So yeah, I think I'm unsure. I'm questioning whether the Kappa myth is homophobic or not. I don't know because I really am not familiar with this at all. But just from what information I have, it seems to be punishing the concept. Like, it's the purpose of the Kappa myth, from what I can see, is to scare children. And it seems you're scaring children by threatening them with anal, like, punishment, which seems homophobic. Plus, it seems to be, like, making fun of anal sex, which seems homophobic. But I really don't know where the origin of the Kappa myth and the Shiri Kodama, like, where did that come from? I don't know what the...
Gotcha.
Like, I don't know where that originated from and what the intentions behind the creation of the myth is. So I can't really be sure.
Yeah, I guess that it's certainly interesting. I might have to ask you the question again once we get further down the road and ask if you still think it's homophobic, and maybe after doing a little bit of more research into the Kappa myth itself.
I definitely thought it was homophobic before I knew it was part of the myth, because I'm like, if you as an animator are just randomly choosing to do this, and I'm like, what the F? Like, this is so messed up. But then when I realized it was part of the myth, I'm like, oh, well, that's more complicated.
So can we talk about the whole Kappa transformation thing for just a moment?
Oh my god. Sure.
Oh my god, the whole process of extraction where Kepi, the Kappa King, goes up the main characters' butts and almost like devours them and then transforms them into their own little Kappa creatures, Kappa versions of themselves.
Honey, that scene is probably the most shocking and most noteworthy scene of this entire episode.
That whole sequence, though, like, from start to finish, is pretty crazy. Like, the whole fighting the Kappa zombie and...
Okay, I don't know if this is on television in Japan, but if it is...
Yes.
It is? Okay. How the fuck is this on television in Japan when it is so graphic in its nudity? Like,
it's airing on Fuji TV in a very late night slot, if I believe so.
But most anime air in a late night slot.
I don't know if Fuji TV is one of those, like, behind the watershed kind of...
Oh my god. Okay, but, like, anime has been censored for, like, the tiniest speck of blood dripping from someone's pinky toe. And then you have this, where you see a close-up of a Kappa's anus expand while it rectally ejects another Kappa from its anus. And we just see that completely uncensored. I'm just like, what? First of all... But yeah, that's the first thing, is like, I was extremely surprised because this level of graphic nudity is on a completely different range than what I would see in other anime. So I was surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it's not nudity of the level of you're seeing, like, penises full shaft, but it's not that far off either.
It's basically like, how graphic can you be without showing a dick? That's basically
pretty much.
It's like, I feel like that was a sentence that was spoken in the production meeting.
And it's almost like they're trying to get as close to showing actual like anal sex as possible without showing actual anal sex.
Honey, there's definitely been rim jobs. I don't know if you consider that anal sex.
Well.
Wait. Well, okay, in the Kappa zombie scene, when they turn into Kappas, they literally become anal beads and they go into the zombie's ass.
They do. That was a big what the fuck moment too.
I will say that
also the musical dance sequence and what the fuck.
Oh my god. Okay, I found that kind of like quirky and funny. They're just like singing like off tone and just
like intentionally off tone and out of sync.
Yeah. That was,
it's like someone had this idea but they didn't talk about it before, so everyone else just kind of going along with it and making it up as they go along.
Yeah. All of the nudity in the show was very disturbing. Surprising.
I think that's
and disturbing.
The point though.
I mean,
I get the sense that's supposed to be the point.
But why are you trying to disturb me?
I don't know.
Whatever.
But speaking of the whole Kappa zombie sequence, at the end of it, when they get together and they all scream Sarazanmai, which is apparently the only way that they can turn back into their like human forms. Part of that involves what's known as a leaking sequence, where I guess essentially they're like the three main characters are like a hive mind, and they can kind of sense their innermost thoughts and desires, and this usually ends up resulting in a character. It seems like it'll end up resulting in a character having a secret of theirs revealed to the others.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing because that speaks a lot to what I think is going to be the overall like theme of this, and it's about making connections with people and how far or how much of yourself you want to reveal by making connections with people. Because like say you get a friend, right, and that friend becomes a good friend. Eventually they know more and more about you, and you might tell them stuff that you wouldn't tell random strangers on the street. Same with getting a significant other. If you get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or what have you, eventually you have to open yourself up, and they'll eventually know some of your secrets that the outside world doesn't know.
I guess that's such a like tired theme in anime though. Like connecting hurts. Oh
maybe, but this is a very interesting way to portray it.
This is a very interesting as a understatement.
But the whole point of me bringing that up is one of the things that we learn, one of the secrets that we learn is that the idol, quote unquote idol from the beginning, Azuma Sara, is actually the main character Kazuki cross-dressing.
I love how the animation for the cross-dress or whatever, the idol in the initial scene was animated to look like the actual idol, but then in the leaking scene it's animated to look like the main character cross-dressing. I thought that was really good because it really tricked me. And I was impressed. I was actually kind of surprised in a good way for once in this episode. Because I'm like, oh, that's a pretty big secret, like to be just cross-dressing on the streets. Like just like you're just randomly cross-dressing and like running around. I'm like, okay, that's a pretty decent secret. I was pretty impressed that it wasn't something stupid. And then it like...
You also find out that's what's in the box he carries around.
Exactly. It all makes sense now. All the random things makes sense. Like, yes. And the jump cut makes sense to the cross-dressing because technically it wasn't a jump cut because it actually did follow what the MC was doing. Yes. Even though we didn't know that. And then we know what's in the box. I feel like we know something.
What's in the box?
Oh my god. We still don't know what's in the basement, but we know it's in the box. What else? Is there anything else that we figured out from the cross-dressing? I don't think so. But like a lot of things made more sense. And Okay, so You know what? I'm not gonna say it, but yeah, It was a decent surprise because, it made the previous things that were really made no sense. It all made sense very quickly, and that quick realization was really, it was a really great feeling to have that, like, have my brain actually work and like connect things. My brain is like, oh, please don't make me move. But then the show was like, you're gonna connect the dots. And I'm like, oh, wow, I've used my brain.
Oh, thank you, Senpai.
Exactly. It was good. I liked it.
All right, so I want to wrap this up by talking about the OP and the ED. I think you and I both agree they are both fantastic.
Oh my god, honey.
But I want to talk about the OP first.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think there's quite a bit of foreshadowing going on in this OP. But one of the things that you believe this foreshadows, and I can kind of see it, is it's foreshadowing one of the main characters into being into, as in like romantically into Kazuki.
Okay, so there's like, okay. So
Calm down.
We're going too far. We're doing too many things. Okay, the song with the OP I think is catchy. The actual visuals for the OP are like meh. It's just like whatever. But like you said, what I particularly thought was that there was a specific sequence in the OP where it shows all of the characters looking up to a floating head of another character. And to me, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, so this is who that person likes. So I see Kazuki looking up to what I thought was a girl. And then I'm like, okay, MC likes a girl. And then the second one was Enta, the glasses boy, looking up to Kazuki. I'm like, okay, the gay best friend who likes the MC. And then you have Toy looking up to his or some older man. And I'm like, okay, he's like a sugar baby. And then
sugar baby.
And then you have the dark-skinned police officer looking up to the light-skinned police officer. And I'm like, like when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is definitely about like the sequence is definitely telling me what they like, because those two police officers are into each other. So I'm like, okay, so then everyone else is also into the other person. Okay. That's literally the first thing I thought when I saw that.
I mean, I can certainly see that. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But there's a lot of, I don't know if it's intentional, but there's a significant amount of homosexual imagery in the OP, especially with rainbows.
I know. Oh my god, I'm like so LGBT friendly. Except for the
especially like at the end, there's like a fucking big ass rainbow that just goes over everything and everyone.
So amazing.
It's very interesting. Like, we think of Japan as like this very, I won't say completely LGBT friendly, but it's not the most friendly place for people who happen to be LGBT.
No, it isn't. See, I don't know.
Certain places are, like some of the big cities are, but like a lot of the rural areas are not.
I guess I don't think anywhere is really that friendly, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know if this, like I said before, I don't know if this is a gay friendly or not show. I really can't tell. But there's like gay imagery in the OP. Yeah. That is there.
Maybe it's something that'll be built on, like you say. Maybe it's a lot of foreshadowing.
Maybe there's a leprechaun at the end of the rainbow.
Can we, though, talk about the phenomenal, and I mean absolutely phenomenal animation that the ED has?
Well, the animation. There's really no animation, but
but you know what I mean. The art style, and it's very different.
Yeah, just like the show, the ED is very unconventional, and I love it. It's like real life photography of
actual places.
I don't know exactly where. I would assume it's Asakusa, but it could be anywhere in Tokyo. At night in the rain, with no one there, and I'm like, oh my god, I love that aesthetic of just like urban places that are abandoned. that's just a me thing. I don't know what that actually means or the symbol, but I just love that aesthetics. I'm like, oh, give me that. And then
and the fact that the main characters get superimposed, like they're not like real people dressed up by them. They're actual anime character designs that are just superimposed onto real world imagery.
Yeah, and then there's like light show going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It might, now that I think about it, the fact that the animated characters are superimposed on real photography, maybe that means like they're out of place or they're isolated. And also like the disco lights that go on, it's really off-putting because like the disco lights make you think you're having a party, but there's no one in the photograph.
No one there.
Exactly. So it's like
it's a party, but no one's home.
Oh my god. Anyways, I think those feelings you get like where you want to have a party but there's no one there, and like that kind of has to do with the themes of connecting or whatever. Anyways,
yeah. It's a lot of connection symbolism there. I definitely agree with that for sure.
I love it. I love the feeling of loneliness.
So, oh God. As you go stand in a corner and cry. So I want to finish this off with, I think our overall impression of this particular episode maybe has raised our opinion of what the series will be going forward.
No.
No?
My first impression of this episode was that it was disturbing, uncomfortable, too much information, and it had good animation.
And really good animation.
Really good animation. We didn't talk about it, but like, as disturbing as those sequences were, that they were animated so smoothly, so beautiful, such amazing animation for those scenes. I loved the animation, but it's still disturbing.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what comes next because I just want to see how well it's animated. If nothing else, I want to see how good the animation is.
I have a bad feeling in my soul.
In my
Shirikodama is getting a bad touch.
Oh my.
Bad touch.
On that note, I'm going to wrap that up here. Thank you all for dropping in to listen to this special presentation of Anime Club After Dark. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing it to you. You can always check out previous episodes of the podcast on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and now Spotify. You can keep up what we're doing by following us on Facebook, Discord, Twitch, and you can visit our website, and very, very soon we will have a brand new Twitter page, so you can check us out there. You can email us any kind of ideas or criticisms or comments or concerns on any episode that we do. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. And also, down below, be sure to let us know what you thought of the first episode of Sarazanmai. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, show.
Goodbye, Dishu.
Dishu.